Imagine a moment when everything around you seems to stand still, and suddenly you feel a deep calling within, a whisper telling you that your time has come, that the doors that once seemed closed are about to open. This is the time of change, a time when God will lead you to a completely new place, bigger, brighter, and full of possibilities beyond anything you've ever imagined. On this journey, based on the wisdom of Emmet Fox, you will discover how to transform your thoughts, align your mind with divine power, and receive with faith the blessings that are already waiting for you. Get ready. What you are about to hear is not just a message, it is an invitation to be reborn, to walk toward the life you have always dreamed of, and to embrace a change that will transform every aspect of your existence. Listen with an open heart, because the time of change has arrived, and your new place awaits you. This encounter between you and these words is no accident. It is not coincidence, nor a whim of blind fate. You have arrived at this text because a higher force brought you here, and although you may believe you chose it, it is truer to say that you were chosen. There are moments when human chronos, linear, measured, predictable time, is suddenly interrupted by divine kairos. It is the exact instant, outside all calendars, where the eternal touches the shores of your life, and the ordinary turns extraordinary. Today you are in one of those portals. Predestined encounters exist. They are gateways where the soul remembers its origin and its purpose. Moments when a single phrase, a single page, a single breath can alter the course of your life more than years of effort. When the reader and the text meet in kairos, the word becomes a seed, and consciousness closes fertile. If you close your eyes right now and breathe deeply, you will discover that the same energy that orchestrates the beat of your heart has brought you here. Conscious breathing is the key to access this portal. Surrender your hurry, your doubt, your logic, and prepare to enter another reality. God acts in the shadows. His invisibility is not absence, but perfect activity behind the veil. Every choice you've made, every unexpected turn, every door closed or opened has been the stage of His loving hand, working where your eyes do not see and your mind cannot calculate. There is no coincidence in the web of events that have brought you to this threshold. There is a higher design, and you are about to witness it. Perhaps you have once sought signs and answer, a coincidence, a confirmation, like a nocturnal walker holding a lantern searching for the moon while it already illuminates his entire path. Such is the life of the fearful soul, asking for a road that has already shown itself, begging for a light that already burns above its head. How many times have you felt an invisible pull toward a decision your reason could not explain? How many times has a single clear voice whispered a direction amid the noise of 1,000 doubts? Recognize the difference. God's voice speaks once with total clarity. Anxiety screams 1,000 times and says nothing. Faith is the antidote to failure. It is not credulity. It is movement in the direction that your spirit already knows. It is a spiritual antibiotic. Even when the symptoms of fear fade, you must complete the treatment, sustaining belief until the miracle becomes visible. Repeat after me. Today I choose to trust what my soul has already recognized. Thus the word imprints in your mind and body, activating the process of transformation. Neurotheology explains it. Affirmative declarations reconfigure the spiritual circuitry and prepare your being for revelation. Not everyone is ready for what will be revealed here. There are mysteries that can only be received by those who have traversed a certain thirst, a certain weariness of the old, a certain longing for the new. If you have felt that tension, that promise that there is a beyond for your spiritual life, then this book is for you. Move forward, but do so with respect. Each line is a key, each truth a seed. You are now crossing the threshold of the inevitable. Before you opens the narrow corridor, the breaking point where the old identity dies and the new begins to gestate. You are at the threshold of greater revelation. Dare to enter. This is it, the code of the new place when God calls you to step out. Based on the teachings of Emmet Fox, we have noticed that more than 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to keep creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. The Divine Architecture of Collapse. Every existence has a threshold. Sometimes one feels that crossing it drags along the ruins of what was once considered life itself. There is no human being who, over the course of years, has not faced the collapse of something beloved. A relationship, a project, an identity, a dream. From the outside, collapse seems like the final act of a tragedy. Yet, allow me to assure you, it is not tragedy but architecture, design, a repositioning of what must occupy another place so that your destiny can expand without fracture. There is a pedagogy in apparent demolition. The narrow corridor is that zone where the old identity dies, suffocated, and the new one has not yet taken shape. It is the hallway where there are no windows or familiar doors, only the echo of your steps resonating in the void of uncertainty. No one likes this corridor because there the security of the known is lost. But it is precisely there that God works with the greatest creativity. It is in that liminal space where what you call failure the principle calls foundation. Let me clarify this with the precision it deserves. God does not destroy on a whim nor punish for sport. Punishment is a human invention. Demolition is divine methodology. Do not confuse the collapse of the external with the ruin of the internal. They are opposite processes. Ruin of character results from resistance to the voice from above. The collapse of a decaying structure, on the other hand, is an act of supreme love. A wise architect does not hesitate to demolish a wooden house when he sees that the coming storm requires a stone house. The temporary tenant, blinded by fear, clings to the boards, unaware that his life will be preserved in the new design. Have you not at some point clung to what you were desperately asking God to restore, only to discover in time that its collapse was your salvation? Allow me to reveal a secret. Not all doors that close make noise. Human doors slam. The walls God demolishes fall silently. There are times when, without knowing how, you find yourself on the other side of a situation, as if awakening in unfamiliar territory. It was not an accident. It was a providential relocation. Remember Abraham. His departure from Ur was not flight nor exile, but ascension. He was asked to leave his ancestral land, not as punishment, but to open a higher dimension impossible to reach in an environment that could no longer bear the weight of his destiny. The pain of collapse almost always lies in the confusion between loss and liberation. That which you believed indispensable was only necessary to a certain point. When life removes it, it is not stealing. It is positioning. What departs by divine decree leaves space to be filled with something greater. But until you release ignorance, you cannot receive the promise. It is law. The cup that is full cannot receive fresh water. Let me illustrate. Imagine an architect contemplating a plan, realizing that the old house will not support the family's expansion. He has two paths: patch the old until it bursts, or demolish the insufficient and build the new. The tenant does not see the blueprint. He fears the dust, the debris, the temporary exposure. Yet the architect, with total vision, knows that only demolition allows the new construction. Such is your life. When the structure of your days can no longer sustain the weight of your purpose, God orders the demolition. It is not ruin, it is restoration in process. Think of your past failures. How many times have you wept for a closed door that, in retrospect, protected you from an invisible fire? Ask yourself honestly, how many opportunities did you regret losing only to later discover that those losses saved you from greater harm? Collapse is the disguise of divine care. Failure is a masked messenger. What appears as defeat in the light of time is strategic redirection. Here lies the fundamental difference between human punishment and divine ascension. Punishment seeks correction through pain. Ascension uses apparent pain as the birth of something higher. The theology of punishment produces fear, guilt, paralysis. The pedagogy of ascension produces maturity, faith, and expansion. The first confines, the second liberates. There is a profound paradox between material loss and spiritual gain. The world teaches that value is measured by what one possesses and retains. The principle teaches that only what is surrendered in faith becomes a platform for the new. Voluntary renunciation is a key. Resistance is a lock. Voluntary letting go transforms collapse into graceful relocation. Resistance turns it into painful exile. Consider Abraham's story. He was not ripped from his land by violence, but called to depart through revelation. His obedience was not blind submission, but active collaboration with divine movement. He left without a complete map, without human guarantee, trusting that the principle would open paths where there was only desert. Thus, biblical history becomes an archetype. Every departure, every loss, every forced exile is, in reality, an initiation into ascension. Do you wonder why some doors slam while others simply vanish? The answer lies in the distinction between human action and divine intervention. Human doors close with argument, discussion, conflict. The walls that God demolishes fall in the silence of an inexplicable certainty. Suddenly, something you believed indispensable loses power over you. The habit that seemed unbreakable dissolves. The relationship that was a chain becomes a story. These are the walls of Jericho falling silently by the work of a higher force. There is a mental alchemy that transforms failure into data. Failure, seen from the lower mind, is sentence. Seen from the elevated mind, it is instruction. Every defeat contains information about what must be left behind. Each collapse is an X-ray of the exact point where the old self cannot cross into new territory. Make collapse data, not dogma. Make error instruction, not stigma. Only thus does faith become the antidote to failure. Napoleon said that faith is the antidote to failure, and he was right. It is not inert, mystical faith, but operative, active, antitoxic. Like an antibiotic that must be taken to the end, faith cannot be interrupted simply because symptoms fade. One must persist until the new scenario is fully established. Many abandon the narrow corridor just before reaching the threshold. Persevere. Reflection exercise. Pause and name 3 failures that, seen today, were necessary redirections. Do it in silence, like observing a landscape already traveled. Feel the weight lighten as you realize that nothing was in vain, that every collapse contained a secret coordinate toward your expanded destiny. Repeat this whenever you feel lost in the dust of demolition. The principle is already at work. Failure is a disguised messenger. It does not come to destroy, it comes to announce. Reject it and you prolong the process. Accept it and you accelerate revelation. Every collapse has a hidden design revealed in 3 movements. First, the demolition of insufficiency. Second, the sowing of the new vision. Third, the construction of the new structure. Do not rush to rebuild over debris. Wait for the new instruction. Listen for the whisper that speaks once with total clarity, never in the clamor of anxiety. Let me tell you something few are ready to receive. Your current collapse, as painful as it may be, already has a purpose assigned before you existed. Nothing that now falls apart is essential for the fulfillment of your higher destiny. Nothing. What remains, what persists after the dust, is what will sustain the weight of the coming glory. Now a ceremonial pact. Declare with me in a firm voice, with an open heart, I accept collapse as the platform of my ascension. I release the old structure and receive the new design. I trust the principle guiding me, even if I cannot see the complete plan. My life is safe in the hands of the divine architect. So it is. Do not underestimate the power of declaration. Every word spoken with certainty programs the subconscious and mobilizes invisible forces working in your favor. Neurotheology confirms it. The brain carves new pathways when affirmative words are repeated with certainty and conviction. The narrow corridor is the place of gestation. There is no birth without pain, no ascension without detachment. The caterpillar must die for the butterfly to emerge. This is not poetry. It is law. Cling to the dry branch and you will never fly. The narrow corridor is proof that you are ready to receive more, even if you do not feel it. It is the threshold between what was and what will be. Cross it with faith. Do not linger analyzing the debris. Focus on the contemplation of the greater blueprint. I close this chapter revealing an image to keep in mind and heart. Each time a structure of your life collapses, imagine yourself in a narrow corridor without apparent light, but with certainty that at the end there is an open door to a wider scenario. Cross that corridor without looking back. What is left behind could not sustain you. What comes is greater, firmer, more aligned with your essence. Collapse is the breaking point where the old dies and the new is born. Collaborate with the forces already building your next scenario. Walk forward. The principle never fails. And when you emerge on the other side, recognize you have been positioned for a greater purpose. So it is. Chapter 2. The Code of Creative Obedience. When a human being hears the word obedience, the mind conjures images of duty, rigid rules, of following orders without understanding the purpose. But today, I must reveal to you the true meaning of obedience, the obedience that arises from spiritual intelligence, the obedience that transforms your life into a laboratory of miracles. To obey is not to bow your head and walk through life as one who fears punishment, but to align with purpose and move to the rhythm of the truth that pulses within you. Creative obedience is the art of advancing even when the map is blank, each step tracing the path, because faith is not passive, it is active construction. Most people wait for complete instructions before moving. They expect the route to be illuminated from start to finish, every signal unambiguous, the voice from above speaking 1,000 times, always the same, to dispel all doubt. But what if I told you that God rarely explains the entire bridge? The principle responds to movement, not inertia. Faith grows stronger by building as you walk, not by observing the terrain from afar. Allow me to share a simple parable. Imagine a tightrope walker who must cross a rope stretched over an abyss. He has two options: look down seeking the safety net, or fix his gaze on the opposite point, the goal. Those who seek safety in the rope hesitate, lose balance, and fall. Those who look at the goal advance with certainty, even without seeing the net. This illustrates the difference between seeking absolute security, which never exists in this plane, and moving with the spiritual certainty that each step generates new structure. Security paralyzes. Certainty moves. There are obediences that enslave and obediences that liberate. Religious obedience, the blind adherence to external rules, binds you to fear, to the judgment of others, to the watchful eyes of those who never dare to change. Spiritual obedience, on the other hand, is a contract between your deepest self and the intelligence that inhabits you. It does not depend on applause or external punishment, but on alignment with your true purpose. When you obey the inner call, even if others do not understand, even if logic protests, you activate laws that operate beyond reason. Abraham was called and obeyed. He left the known without the promise of human certainty, relying only on an inner word. Joseph, however, was violently thrown into the abyss of slavery, betrayed by his own brothers. Yet both, through different paths, one voluntarily, the other forced, obeyed the movement, allowing providence to reposition them for something greater. Abraham represents conscious obedience. Joseph, obedience in the midst of confusion. What do they have in common? Neither knew the outcome until they walked it. Have you ever used the lack of total clarity as a sophisticated excuse not to move? When I have certainty, when everything is clear, when there is no doubt, reasons the mind that fears losing control. But the principle does not bless inertia decorated with prudence. Faith is operative, not contemplative. If you wait for perfect alignment, you will never advance. Spiritual life is not a waiting room. It is a field of action. I want you to understand a fundamental secret. God responds to movement, not static pleas. The prayer that transforms is not the one that begs endlessly for signs, but the one that declares, the one that acts, the one that says, I am ready for the new place, and moves forward even if the feet tremble. Many confuse the prayer of action with the prayer of petition. Petition that merely repeats the same requests is noise to the universe. Action, on the other hand, is a magnet for grace. Here is an exercise. Pause and declare aloud, I am ready for the new place. Say the words with intention. Feel them resonate in your chest. Observe honestly what occurs in your body. Is there tension in the shoulders, a knot in the stomach, subtle resistance? That is the friction between the old self, afraid of losing control, and the new self, sensing expansion. Do not fight this resistance. Observe it, thank it, let it go. Each verbal declaration is a chisel stroke on the rock of your subconscious mind, opening internal pathways. Creative obedience is not a strategy for the submissive, but for the architects of destiny. It is both a military and architectural strategy. You do not advance on whim. You advance because your inner commander has signaled the direction. You do not build on shifting sands, but on the rock of divine intuition. Each step of faith is a brick placed in the void, which, once set, forms a platform. The doctrine of co-created reality is simple. Each thought matters. Every action, every decision aligned with truth is construction material for the destiny only you can manifest. Napoleon, whom I cite because he understood the machinery of the mind, said, "You become what you think most of the time." Translated into spiritual language, you become what you obey internally, even if your body remains still. The dominant thought is the root of real obedience. Obey fear and you reap limitation. Obey inner peace even without full understanding, and you reap revelation. There is a hidden cost in disobedience disguised as prudence. The mind fears error more than paralysis, but error is correctable. Paralysis never is. Some promises do not arrive, not for lack of faith, but for lack of movement. The river forks when the rower moves the oar. God does not bless inaction crowned with reasoning, but obedience that advances despite fear. Consider how many opportunities you have let pass while waiting for the perfect sign, not realizing that inner peace was already the supreme sign. Peace is not always the absence of fear, but the presence of a conviction that transcends fear. Jesus never promised a bridge illuminated from start to finish, only the certainty that by taking the step, the path would appear beneath your feet. The trap of begging for signs is as old as humanity. The fearful soul asks for confirmation after confirmation, forgetting that the true seal of the Spirit is peace that remains after fear. Joseph was sold as a slave. Nothing made sense. Everything seemed punishment, injustice, collapse. Yet at each station of his life, he obeyed the movement. He worked in Potiphar's house, then in prison, then before Pharaoh. Life did not explain the full bridge. Faith strengthened by walking. When he finally saw the complete picture, he understood that every injustice had been a step toward his destiny as savior for his people. This is how the code of creative obedience operates. When you walk, the bridge reveals itself. When you doubt, the abyss seems insurmountable. Now I ask you with love and firmness, how many times have you used lack of clarity as an excuse not to obey? How many ideas, businesses, relationships, moves have remained in limbo, waiting for the complete map? The principle does not reveal the final design to a mind that does not move. The map is drawn by walking, not by planning. Do you dare to advance without human guarantees? Do you dare to release control and allow divine intelligence to draw the next step beneath your feet? Obedience is a quantum accelerator of promises in gestation. Every time you declare, "I am ready," even if the emotion does not immediately follow, your internal reality begins to reconfigure. The body learns the new vibration. The mind adapts. Destiny unfolds. Obedience opens the door through which miracles enter. Contemplative faith observes. Operative faith builds. Disobedience is costly not only for missed opportunities, but because it trains the mind to doubt inner impulse. Every time you disobey inspiration, your spiritual muscle atrophies. Every time you obey, even in small things, that muscle strengthens. Do not wait for grand revelations to move. Move in small things, and the great will come by addition. Do not underestimate everyday obedience. A word, a call, a gesture can be invisible bricks in your personal bridge. Think again of the tightrope walker. If he waits to feel absolute security before taking the first step, he will never cross. If he chooses to move, certainty strengthens with each step. So it is in life. Security paralyzes, certainty mobilizes. Security seeks an external net. Certainty knows the principle never abandons the walker. Let me close this chapter with an urgent warning. Do not confuse prudence with paralysis. True prudence listens to inner peace. Paralysis listens to fear disguised as logic. Creative obedience is the spiritual campaign strategy that conquers unexplored territories. God will not hold you accountable for what you tried and failed, but for what you did not try out of fear of error. Now perform this simple but powerful act. Place your hand over your chest, close your eyes and declare, "I am ready for the new place. Even if I do not see the bridge, I move forward. Even if I do not understand the full design, I obey the principle that dwells within me. My faith draws the map as I walk." So it is. Let the echo of this declaration resonate in your mind and body. Observe the sensations that emerge. Do not seek to eliminate discomfort immediately. Let it signal that the old self is being transcended. Remember, every time you obey, you actively co-create your destiny. Reality is soft clay in the hands of dominant thought. If your obedience arises from love, peace, and certainty, every step you take is a seed of miracle. And so I leave you on the threshold of the next revelation. Imagination, as the laboratory where future obediences are rehearsed. What seems invisible today will tomorrow be structure beneath your feet if you dare to walk in faith. So it is. Chapter 3. The Secret Laboratory of Imagination. Imagination is the hidden laboratory where future realities are conceived. Those who are unaware of this inner workshop are condemned to repeat the worn-out patterns of the past. But those who learn to direct the power of their imagination become conscious architects of their destiny. Here is a truth. The mind is the field of operations for all creation, and imagination is the principal instrument in the hands of the spirit. Many have dismissed imagination, confusing it with mere fantasy, idle dreaming, or childish escapism. Nothing could be further from the truth. Fantasy is escape, a flight, a game without commitment to reality. Prophetic imagination, on the other hand, is preparation, the ability to see what does not yet exist and, by seeing it with faith, give the principle permission to manifest it through time and space. Imagine the Olympic athlete who, in the solitude of training, visualizes the race again and again before ever running it. His muscles, nerves, breathing, his entire system learns victory before the starting signal. Every detail has been rehearsed in the secret laboratory of his mind. When the day arrives, his body executes what his mind has already lived. So it operates with the principle. The subconscious takes the script you provide, images and emotions, and allies with grace to bring it into reality. I now reveal a secret that modern science is beginning to understand. The brain does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a lived one. When you visualize with faith, your nervous system, hormones, and breath all respond as if what you imagine is already occurring. The Spirit gave you imagination as the prelude to the miracle. The Bible demonstrated this with Abraham. When his tent was empty and his body weary, the voice asked him to look at the stars and count descendants he could not see. Abraham obeyed, and that vision defied his present reality. It was prophetic imagination that prepared his heart to receive the promise. Now I want you to pause and observe your own inner life. What have you been imagining most frequently? Disaster or promise? What film plays over and over in the theater of your mind? Failure, abandonment, scarcity or abundance, achievement, blessing. The mind is like fertile soil. What you sow in images, you reap in circumstances. You are not a victim of what happens to you, but of what you have allowed to repeat inside you. There is a subtle but vital difference between fantasizing and preparing the ground. Fantasy seeks momentary pleasure but flees action. It is smoke that vanishes in the light of day. Prophetic imagination, however, is a seed that, watered by faith, germinates and grows. Visualization with faith is the language by which you speak to the subconscious, instructing the universe. It is positive autosuggestion, not as a mere psychological technique, but as a spiritual mandate. You become what you think most of the time, said Napoleon. Now you understand. You become, above all, what you imagine with constancy and emotion. Close your eyes now and allow me to guide you in an experience. Breathe deeply, release tension from your shoulders. Bring to mind the image of what you desire to see manifested. Do not observe it as a spectator, but as the protagonist. If you seek peace, imagine yourself inhabiting a place of harmony. If you seek prosperity, feel yourself already providing, already receiving. If you desire health, visualize your body moving with energy and joy. Let the details be painted with the brush of emotion. Feel anticipatory gratitude, the certainty that this reality is already gestating invisibly. Notice your heartbeat changing. Sense your body responding, even though it exists only in your mind. Properly used, imagination is a dress rehearsal for life. It is a technique preserved by mystics for centuries, now able to train you to enter the circle of those who understand the true art of creation. What you rehearse in the secret laboratory of your imagination eventually becomes a scene in your life. But beware, there is a silent danger, a subtle trap. The very faculty that can bless you can turn against you if fed with fear. If you visualize misfortune, repeatedly imagine scenes of defeat, your nervous system trains itself to fail. Body and mind, deceived by images of fear, seek confirmation externally. Paths are blocked because you have already pictured yourself losing internally. It is not punishment, it is law. What you feed in your mental laboratory becomes the dominant pattern of your experience. It is not magic. It is spiritual and psychological law. The subconscious does not reason, it obeys. If you repeatedly feed it images of abundance, prosperity, and health, with emotion, repetition, and anticipatory gratitude, it prepares your entire being to receive that blessing. If you repeat images of fear, lack, or distress, the same happens, but in the opposite direction. That is why Jesus emphasized becoming like children. Children imagine without resistance, without censorship, without doubt. Adults, however, have learned to sabotage their laboratory with ideas of impossibility, negative realism, and limits that exist only in collective thought. The practice of seeing yourself in the new place is an act of anticipatory obedience. It is not madness, not self-deception, but spiritual training. Those who wait to see in order to believe are condemned to live only what others have already lived. Those who believe and see themselves before seeing open the door to personal miracles. Abraham believed and saw himself as the father of multitudes when all evidence said otherwise. So must you. Visualize in detail with emotion, with gratitude. Feel the buzz of achievement as if it were already yours. Repeat this exercise daily upon waking. It does not matter if external reality seems hostile. Persevere. Visualized faith sustained with firmness eventually manifests what the mind conceives and the heart holds. I want to reveal another truth. Neurotheology has shown that affirmative prayer and visualization modify brain circuits. The nervous system adapts to what you repeatedly imagine. That is why miracles are not violations of nature but fulfillment of higher laws. The body learns victory before experiencing it. Mind and heart prepare to sustain the blessing before it arrives. Internal preparation is a prerequisite for external manifestation. No one can sustain what they have not rehearsed in the intimacy of their inner laboratory. Do you wonder why some achievements seem elusive? Because when the blessing appears, sometimes you cannot hold it. The answer lies in internal preparation. Those untrained mentally to receive sabotage themselves at the moment of attainment. This is why many lottery winners return to poverty, or why people who find love lose it quickly. They did not prepare internally. Visualization with faith rehearses victory until the subconscious assumes it as natural. When this happens, the universe conspires to uphold you at this new level. I warn you, never use imagination to rehearse fear, revenge, or distress. Every image of terror is a vote for disaster. Choose consciously the images you cultivate. Make your imagination a sacred laboratory where miracles are prepared. Affirm within, my mind is a workshop of grace. I only imagine what I intend to manifest. Every day I rehearse the life I wish to live. So it is. Positive autosuggestion, practiced with discipline, is a first-order spiritual tool. Do not confuse it with mere positive thinking. It is the conscious repetition of images and words that train the subconscious to cooperate with grace. Faith is the certainty of what is hoped for, the conviction of what is unseen. When you imagine, you believe. When you believe, you create. Remember, everything manifested in the visible world was first an idea in someone's mind. Every building, every work of art, every advancement, every miracle originated in the secret laboratory of imagination. This is how the principle operates. It delivers the raw material in the form of inspiration, ideas, and images, and waits for you to develop, maintain, and nurture them with faith until they are born into the material plane. I close this chapter leaving you with a practical instruction and a loving warning. Every day, upon waking and before sleep, dedicate 5 minutes to visualize your life as you wish it to be. Do not merely repeat words, use vivid images charged with emotion. See, feel, smell, touch, live the scene internally, and repeat with gratitude. Thank you, because it is already done. Thank you, because all good manifests in my life. Thank you, because I am prepared to receive and sustain my blessing. But do not imagine from fear. Make your laboratory an altar, not a dungeon. Choose the promise, not disaster. And now I leave you at the threshold of the next battlefield, your internal dialogue. Before stepping into the new territory, you must conquer the invisible saboteurs murmuring within you. There lies the decisive moment to claim the right to inhabit what has already been rehearsed in imagination. So it is. Chapter 4. The Tyranny of Internal Dialogue. The greatest tyrant in human life is not external oppression, nor even circumstantial adversity, The greatest tyrant is the inner voice, the ceaseless discourse that runs through our minds from dawn to deep sleep. It is the invisible dialogue unheard by others, yet lived by all. This narrative shapes our identity, our mood, our faith, or our fear. Those who do not learn to recognize, audit, and transform this dialogue remain enslaved by it, regardless of how favorable their external circumstances may be. Internal dialogue is the operating system of the soul. It determines your destiny more than any inheritance, environment, or external event. It is the underground current that guides your choices, emotions, and outcomes. What you tell yourself at night lays the groundwork for what you will encounter upon waking. Each thought, each phrase silently repeated, is a seed planted in the field of your subconscious. At first, it may seem insignificant, but over time that seed germinates. And if neglected, it can grow into a weed that strangles all your flowers. Consider the parable of the careless gardener. Each morning he waters the weeds in his garden with diligence. Day after day he gives them attention, speaks to them, energizes them. Then he wonders, frustrated, why his garden does not bloom with roses and lilies, why his life is filled with thorns and brambles. This is how one who feeds thoughts of failure, fear, and unworthiness behaves, yet expects to harvest success, peace, and joy. You cannot harvest wheat from the seed of tares. The soil of the mind only produces what has been sown. There are two sources of nourishment for the soul: promises or news that steals faith. To feed on promises is to choose daily to remember the words of the principle, "I am with you. You will lack nothing. You can do all things in the Christ within who strengthens you." To feed on fearful news is to allow collective fear, the opinions of others, and dark forecasts to dictate your inner dialogue. The difference between these sources determines the taste and fruit of your existence. Reverse autosuggestion is the most common poison in the human mental life. It consists of consciously or unconsciously repeating phrases that program paralysis, insecurity, and discouragement. Phrases like, "I always fail, no one understands me, I will never succeed." These become dark mantras the mind repeats until the subconscious accepts them as truth. Once installed, these programs guide your actions, decisions, and even the opportunities you notice or reject. I invite you to conduct a forensic audit of your own internal dialogue. Imagine recording everything you say to yourself in a single day. Would you subscribe to that podcast? Would you recommend that a loved one listen to the words you silently repeat? If you had to transcribe that monologue, would it tell the story of a hero in ascent or the lament of one defeated before the battle begins? Do not fear the discomfort of this question. The light must be turned on to clean the house. Confrontation exercise. Write down the 3 phrases you repeat most often in the silence of your mind. Do not overthink. Let them arise. Then examine them with fierce honesty, as if spoken by your worst enemy. Would you allow someone to speak to you like that at breakfast? Would you let your children or loved ones grow up hearing that voice day after day? If the answer is no, then it is time for radical change. The difference between prayer and declaration is the difference between speaking to God from need or speaking with God from the authority delegated to you as a child of the principle. Prayer asks, declaration decrees, supplication waits, decree mobilizes. Jesus taught, "If you have faith like a mustard seed, you would say to this mountain, 'Move,' and it would move." He did not say to ask the mountain, but to speak to it with authority. Internal dialogue must move from fearful supplication to firm decree. The story of the Israelites in the desert perfectly illustrates the tyranny of internal dialogue. A journey that should have taken 11 days extended to 40 years, because day after day they murmured against themselves, against Moses, against God. "We would have been better off in Egypt. There is no water, no bread. We will die here." Each repeated word was another brick in the wall of their own imprisonment. It was not the lack of external provision nor the enemies outside that held them back. It was the internal programming of defeat and fear. Until the generation sustaining that dialogue died, the promise could not manifest. The Napoleonic principle asserts that thought mixed with emotion becomes a magnetic force. What you say with emotional intensity, for better or worse, becomes an attractor. Repeat promises with faith, and you draw blessings. Repeat fears with anxiety, and you attract matching experiences. There is no chance in this. This is the law of spiritual and mental resonance. Thought is the cause. Emotion is the fuel. Repetition is the mold in which destiny is forged. I now share the secret of transformation. Internal dialogue is not destroyed, it is replaced. It is not enough to fight negative thoughts. You must install new phrases, new decrees, new songs of the soul. Transform petitions into declarations, supplications into decrees. When fear arises, affirm, I am one with the principle. Nothing can separate me from the good. Everything I need comes to me at the perfect time. Repeat, not as one who begs, but as one who remembers their own right. Persist even if the mind protests at first. The discipline of internal language is the discipline of destiny. Allow me to guide you through a simple yet powerful practice. Close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and softly repeat, my internal dialogue is my garden. I choose to water only what I want to see grow. I declare life, peace, and purpose over my existence. Every word I plant is a seed of miracle. Stay in silence for a few moments, letting this truth settle in your consciousness. Observe how your body responds, how your inner atmosphere subtly changes. Do not underestimate the power of this practice. Changing internal dialogue is linguistic surgery of the self. It requires patience, honesty, and above all, the willingness to listen. Audit your monologue. Detect recurring patterns, self-sabotages, automatic laments. Once recognized, do not condemn yourself, simply replace them. Make your mind a temple, not a perpetual battlefield. Let me anticipate the next stage. When internal dialogue is so contaminated, so programmed for defeat, sometimes the principle allows a divine interruption, a break in routine, a crisis, an unexpected collapse. It is not punishment. It is a reset. It is the loving hand that turns off the old gramophone to install a new melody. Interruption is how God resets the inner monologue when you have become deaf to it, his whisper. I leave you now at the threshold of the next revelation, divine interruption. Where your internal dialogue has built a wall, the principle is ready to tear it down through circumstances, so that you can once again hear the voice saying, Behold, I make all things new. So it is. Chapter 5. The call disguised as interruption. Human beings fear interruption because they love continuity, the security of carefully plotted plans, the calm of a clear horizon. Yet life guided by the principle rarely respects human itineraries. On the journey of your destiny, sooner or later a storm will surprise you, diverting your ship. An unexpected break will change your route. An interruption that at the moment seems like misfortune is, in reality, a secret summons. A meeting your soul agreed to before descending to this plane. It is crucial to discern that the greatest interruptions are not accidents or punishments. They are intentional adjustments from above. They are veiled invitations to the stage where your true purpose must unfold. Imagine a navigator who, after months of travel under serene skies, is swept by a storm to an unknown island. At first he curses the wind, laments the forced change, questions the justice of fate. But on that island, among the debris and the surprise, lies a hidden treasure, a new opportunity, a new meaning. The interruption was not an accident, it was providential redirection. The storm was a hidden compass. The island was a prepared stage. This is how the higher will operates. It readjusts your course, dismantling your plans to lead you where you must be, even if your reason resists. The difference between guidance by haste and guidance by peace is subtle, yet fundamental. Haste is born of anxiety, external pressure, and the desire to control outcomes. When you move driven by urgency, you often stray from the true calling. Peace, however, is the secret signature of the spirit. Even amidst the most violent interruptions, when the guidance is genuine, a strange and profound peace anchors your interior, like an anchor securing the ship amid the waves. There is a holy restlessness that is neither mere dissatisfaction nor whim. It is the discontent that the principle plants in your soul when what was once sufficient no longer is. When a place, relationship, work, or habit that once sheltered you becomes too narrow, this holy restlessness is the silent alarm of the summons. God will never leave you in a comfortable zone if your calling requires new scenarios. Comfort is the cradle of stagnation. Holy restlessness is the seed of evolutionary leap. How can you recognize the divine hand amid chaos? by subtle confirmations that appear in patterns, by repeated, discrete signs that, in retrospect, form a meaningful tapestry. Suddenly, a phrase you hear multiple times from different mouths, the same verse that keeps appearing, opportunities that disappear, friendships that dissolve without conflict, doors that close with unyielding firmness. It is not chance. It is the principle protecting you from waste, preventing you from expending energy on paths that no longer respond to your destiny. Here is a secret. God closes doors with a master key so that you do not waste time knocking where there is no voice to answer. Human doors can be forced. Divine doors remain closed, even if you wear yourself out in prayers and pleas. Learning to distinguish the difference is advanced spiritual wisdom. Be grateful for every door that closed without explanation, because it saved you years of wandering. Be grateful for interruptions, for they redirect your energy to the correct stage. Jonah is the extreme example of a violent interruption that was, in reality, an urgent summons. He fled his calling, believing that the ship of his plans could take him away from the voice of the principle. But a storm stopped him. A great fish became his shelter, not as punishment, but as a providential waiting room. In the end, the wild interruption was the channel that led him to the exact stage where he had to fulfill his mission. The discomfort of the fish's belly was an incubator of a new level of obedience. Ask yourself this powerful question. How many ruined plans do you now see in perspective as divine rescues from paths that would have destroyed you? How many lost loves, jobs that did not materialize, forced relocations, or economic crises turned out to be disguised lifeboats? Protections that only time could reveal. The chaos that once felt like betrayal is now recognized as a loving adjustment from heaven. Defined purpose, allied with unusual faith, turns every obstacle into a stepping stone. Those who understand this stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to ask, "For what am I being summoned here?" The difference is radical. Life stops being a battlefield and becomes a stage of purpose. Every interruption, minor or major, is the chime of a hidden appointment, an invitation to collect a treasure hidden on the island of surprise. Let me develop this revelation progressively, from the small to the great. Minor interruptions are delays, schedule changes, cancelled appointments, or forgotten events that save you from accidents. If you tune your spiritual ear, you will see that behind each small unexpected turn is the hand of a greater intelligence protecting your path. For the vigilant soul, there is no accident. Everything, absolutely everything, can be a sign. But sometimes interruptions are total collapses, a loss, bankruptcy, dismissal, illness, betrayal. There the ego screams and resists. The mind interprets punishment or injustice. Yet the stories of great men and women of the Spirit are woven from these great deviations. Moses was expelled from Egypt and found his calling in the desert. David was pursued and forged as king outside the palace. Paul was blinded and changed the world from the total interruption of his plans. The greatest treasures are hidden on the unexpected island, reached only when driven there by the storm. Now I ask you a spiritual memory exercise. Identify 3 major interruptions in your life. Examine honestly and humbly the blessings that followed, the hidden gifts, the irreplaceable lessons, the new relationships, the doors open that you would never have discovered if your original plans had not been dismantled. Take inventory. You will see that there is no random chaos in a life allied with the principle, only intentional readjustment. Do not think you are alone in this process. Biblical testimonies are forensic case studies. Observe Joseph, sold as a slave, interrupted in all his youthful dreams, yet made governor and savior of his people thanks to each chained interruption. Look at Ruth, whose mourning led her to the land where her royal lineage was born. Every interruption was a summons, every chaos a bridge, every break a sowing for an unexpected harvest. The language of navigation will help you understand. A wise helmsman does not curse the storm, he uses it to gain speed and direction. The clumsy navigator fights the wind and wastes energy in vain. When the principle blows the wind of interruption, the wisest course is to adjust the sails, change direction, and trust that the unknown island conceals the treasure that logic could not anticipate. Let me close this chapter with a warning and a promise. Warning: those obsessed with absolute certainty before moving lose the opportunity to discover the miracles that only active faith can open. The tyranny of perpetual confirmation is the greatest prison for the soul. Promise, those who learn to trust the interruption, who allow themselves to be summoned even when the map disappears, discover that the principle never leaves them without a compass. I leave you at the threshold of the next secret. Trusting is faster than confirming. True spiritual life is not consumed by the anxiety of seeking guarantees, but by the audacity to move when the inner voice says now. This is how faith is lived, crossing seas and conquering islands where treasures await those who know how to interpret the call disguised as interruption. So it is. Chapter 6. The Trap of Infinite Confirmation. There is an invisible prison that traps many sincere souls. The trap of infinite confirmation is a subtle jail adorned with seemingly spiritual intentions, yet fueled by the root of fear. It disguises itself under the cloak of prudence, discernment, or the search for God's will, but at its core, it is a sophisticated form of disobedience and procrastination. Today, I must dismantle this trap for you, for the soul that constantly seeks signs forgets the power of living faith and the authority of inner peace. Understand this clearly. Asking for direction is healthy. It is a sign of humility and openness to higher guidance. But postponing action out of fear, calling it prudence, is disguised paralysis. It is self-deception, a strategy of those who delay their movement while waiting for impossible certainty. The soul that becomes accustomed to not acting until it receives every external confirmation trains its mind for inertia and turns life into an endless waiting room. You know the parable of the man who stopped at the corner of life, waiting for all the traffic lights to turn green at the same time before daring to cross. Time passed, days went by, and the lights never aligned. He remained immobile while others moved forward, navigating uncertainty. He wanted to ensure he made no mistake, but the greatest mistake was not walking. Life does not bless immobility. The green light is not perpetual. It is moving forward, even while some signals still flicker in amber. The difference between a signal and a requirement is fundamental. A true signal is a loving confirmation that appears along the path, a wink from the principle encouraging you as you move. A requirement, on the other hand, is an anxious demand imposed by the ego before taking a step, a condition used to justify inaction. Whoever subjects every decision to the acquisition of an external sign has made a legal contract with doubt. These are failed negotiations with the divine, unwritten agreements to postpone the leap of faith life requires. Consider the example of Thomas, the disciple who demanded to touch the wounds to believe in the resurrection. Blessedness is for those who believe before seeing, not for those who see before believing. The miracle occurs first in the heart in secret conviction, and only afterward manifests in the visible world. The compulsive search for signs is not devotion, it is anxiety disguised as spirituality. It is the ego attempting to control God, conditioning obedience on guarantees that will never arrive. Peter walked on water only after stepping out of the boat. The miracle began when he stepped onto the sea, not when he understood the physics of flotation. Had he waited for absolute confirmation that he would not sink, he would never have walked. God confirms as you move, not in the waiting room. The universe responds to active faith, not to doubt demanding guarantees. Here I reveal the secret mechanism. Every time you ask for more confirmation, you reinforce the habit of doubt. It is reversed autosuggestion. You train yourself to distrust, to demand proof, to live under the tyranny of external signs. The mind becomes a tribunal, the soul a litigant, and life a perpetual judgment. No genuine spiritual covenant works this way. The true pact is trust. I will act according to your word. Not, I will act if you give me another sign. Now a loving confrontation. How many signs have you requested throughout your life that, deep down, were only negotiations to gain more time in immobility? How many times have you felt inner peace and yet still waited for an external miracle, a voice, a coincidence, before daring to move? Isn't it true that when peace is genuine, any additional sign is unnecessary? The mature soul learns to obey peace, not anxiety in disguise. I propose a radical practice, the 7-day fast from signs. Decide for 7 days not to ask for any external confirmation. Make a pact with yourself. Everything that would normally require confirmation will be evaluated only by inner peace, by the serene clarity that arises after prayer. by the absence of inner noise. If restlessness arises, do not act. If peace emerges, move forward even if the world says otherwise. Observe during this fast how the mind will seek excuses to break it. Discover how addicted you are to external guarantees. Do it with humility, without guilt. This is advanced spiritual training. Each time the temptation arises to ask for a sign, repeat this affirmation. I trust the peace that guides me. My faith does not depend on external lights, but on the inner light. This is an act of soul emancipation, a declaration of spiritual adulthood. Nothing strengthens faith like this exercise in radical trust. The discomfort you feel is the burning away of the old habit of negotiating with the divine. Allow it to burn, to cleanse, to free you from the childish need for proof. In this process, you will discover that faith is the nervous system of the soul. Peace is the pulse that indicates real life. The miracle of spiritual maturity is moving forward without absolute certainty, walking without a signed contract, trusting without a visible net. This is how the heroes of faith are trained. This is how new stories are written in the book of those who believe before seeing. Do not think the principle is offended by your doubts. It understands your fear, but does not bless prolonged inaction. The Spirit understands your negotiations, but invites you to leave the waiting room, to trust the voice that speaks once with clarity, and then remain silent to see if you truly heard. Let me comfort you. If you have ever taken a step and fear held you back, if doubt was stronger than peace, do not condemn yourself. We have all been Thomas at some point, but today is the day to begin the training of the blessed ones, those who dare to trust the internal certainty, even when the horizon is cloudy. There is no greater freedom than that of the one who walks, sustained by peace, not because logic authorizes it. I leave you at the threshold of Abraham, the supreme archetype of one who listens, trusts, and walks without a complete map. He did not negotiate perpetual signs. He accepted the word and stepped forward. His life is a living lesson in faith that builds invisible bridges beneath the feet that advance. So it is. Chapter 7, the map that draws itself as you walk. There is a call that resonates deep within every human being, a whisper that is sometimes only a subtle unease, and at other times a trumpet shaking the foundations of the known. That call is the divine invitation to cross boundaries, to leave behind familiar limits, to enter the territory where the map does not exist until your feet walk it. No true destiny is reached along paths already traveled. The story of Abraham is the theological and spiritual matrix of this journey. It is the story of the man who obeyed the voice without seeing the end, who advanced without pre-drawn routes, who accepted uprooting as a condition for multiplication. God said to him, "Leave your land, your relatives and your father's house, to the land I will show you." This command encompasses 3 dimensions of uprooting, 3 ruptures that release 3 new versions of the self. The first is the land, the physical territory, the spaces where you learn to walk, the landscapes of the familiar. The second is the relatives, the emotional culture, the habits, relational patterns, and shared customs that define the clan. The third is the father's house, the inherited identity, the surname, the history, the beliefs and limitations received before you could choose. Each level of uprooting is a key. Leaving the land challenges physical comfort. Leaving the relatives breaks the loyalty to collective emotions that do not always belong to you. Leaving the father's house frees you from borrowed identity, from the inner voice that repeats, "This is how we are." Who dares to cross these 3 thresholds? You discover a version of yourself that could not have been born on the old ground. But the call is not without pain. It is not about denying love or gratitude. It is about honoring without stagnation, understanding that true love sometimes demands physical distance to allow for spiritual maturity. Abraham loved his home, his roots, his memories, but he chose obedience because he understood that love which holds out a fear of loss eventually suffocates. Love that liberates allows destiny to unfold. There are affections that flourish only when given air and light, when distance allows individual growth. Many confuse honor with permanence, respect with immobility, but honor is not chaining oneself to the past. It is gratitude for what was received and the courage to move when the voice calls. Ask yourself honestly, in which relationships, places, or customs have you confused the duty to honor with the obligation to stay? even though your spirit longs to fly. There are environments that celebrate your seed but cannot withstand your harvest. They love you while you do not grow, celebrate you while you do not change. The same environment that nurtured your birth can resist your multiplication. The parable of the eagle raised among chickens illustrates this mystery. The eaglet, by accident or fate, grew up in the chicken coop. It pecked at the ground, imitated the others, never lifted its gaze, but its instinct reminded it there was more, until one day a greater force cast it off the cliff, and only then, in the vertigo of the fall, did it remember it had wings. Thus, it is with the soul called to uprooting. Though it hurts, it is the only way to remember hidden greatness. Abraham was not called to flee out of hatred or resentment, but to grow beyond the limits of his context. What he left was not lost. What he was could not have been achieved by staying. It is a secret of life. Distance does not destroy purpose. It reveals it with each kilometer separating Abraham from his land. A seed of multiplication was planted in his spirit. Faith that moves is not faith as mere opinion, which only repeats beautiful phrases. It is faith that obeys. Intellectual belief is not enough. Existential obedience is required. The map draws itself only as you walk. No one inherits the promise from the couch of waiting. Each step, even amid uncertainty, generates territory beneath your feet. Those who wait to see the full path before leaving will never leave. Abraham's call was clear. To the land I will show you. Destiny is revealed only after separation from the past. Observe Joseph, the other great protagonist of the divine narrative. Unlike Abraham, Joseph did not choose his uprooting. He was violently separated from what Abraham left voluntarily. Sold by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold to strangers, unjustly imprisoned. Yet both reached higher destinies, one through voluntary obedience, the other through inevitable crisis. What matters is not the method of separation, but the attitude toward the process. Do you accept rupture as a door or as punishment? The revealed secret is this. Abraham loved his home, yet chose obedience because he understood that true love does not imprison. When you love others and yourself, you dare to release. True blessing cannot grow in an environment of control or fear. Sometimes the highest act of love is to take distance, allowing all to flourish. Desire combined with faith becomes magnetic power. It is not enough to wish for change. You must desire it with enough faith to take the first step. Desire alone is vapor until faith condenses it into action. Abraham desired offspring but obtained it because he obeyed. Joseph dreamed of greatness, but reached it because he did not become bitter in the distance, nor renounce the promise amid adversity. In the story of faith, it is not physical distance that matters, but mental distance. You can be far in body and closer than ever in purpose. You can remain close in the flesh and be divorced from the call. Inner movement determines destiny. I invite you now to a spiritual exercise in honesty. Silently name 3 areas of your life where the environment no longer sustains your growth. Relationships, habits, beliefs, places. Ask yourself if staying there is honor, fear, or habit. Imagine the new version of yourself that could emerge if you dared to cross the frontier. Visualize yourself at the edge of a cliff. Feel the vertigo, but do not fear. Your wings will unfold only in the air. The map of your life is incomplete. It draws itself as you walk. Do not fear the blank spaces. They are invitations to co-creation. The promise awaits you in the land of the uncertain, where only faith and obedience can guide your steps. Distance does not destroy purpose. It reveals and amplifies it. Those who dare to release the land, the relatives, and the Father's house inherit more than they leave behind. This is how Abraham lived it, how Joseph confirmed it, and how you will live it if you answer the call and move forward, even when the map is not yet drawn. So it is. Chapter 8. The Quantum Physics of Faith. Faith is not poetry. It is not consolation for the weak, nor a last resort resource. Faith, understood in its true dimension, is a force that alters the fabric of reality, shapes matter, and opens doors where there were only walls before. Those who understand this do not wait. They walk, because faith is not a beautiful thought. It is operational certainty, active conviction that the invisible holds the architecture of the visible, and that by moving, one summons new realities onto the stage of life. Scripture defines faith as the assurance of what is hoped for, the conviction of what is not seen. But what does this mean beyond the statement? It means reality is malleable under the touch of deep conviction. It means you do not see because it already exists, but it exists because you dare to see it with the eyes of the soul before touching it with your hands. In the operational language of life, faith is the muscle that builds the bridge where logic sees only emptiness. Those who wait for guarantees before advancing remain trapped in the circle of doubt. Asking for guarantees is the way the lower mind attempts to delay the leap into mystery. Asking for guarantees is negotiating with the old reality, bargaining with fear, demanding that heaven anticipate provision before the first step. But this is not how the higher law works. The pattern of heaven is this: first obedience, then opening. First the step, then the path. No one sees the bridge until their foot touches the abyss. No one crosses the Jordan without wetting their feet. Look at the story. Peter walked on water not because he understood the physics of flotation, but because he responded to the call and stepped out of the boat. The miracle does not occur in the boat, it occurs in action. Theory never supports the body. Faith does. Similarly, when the priests had to cross the Jordan, the water only parted after their feet touched the river. The promise was clear. When the priest's feet touch the waters will stop, not before. Heaven requires wet feet, not dry theory. Now think of the child learning to swim. They cling to the edge of the pool, afraid to let go, imagining disaster. Only when, overcoming fear, they release the edge and surrender to the water, do they discover their body floats, that the water holds what reason could not guarantee. Likewise, the soul discovers higher laws waiting to be activated only when it releases the old support, abandoning borrowed certainty. The secret is this: imagination is an internal rehearsal that prepares the nervous system to sustain what does not yet exist. It is not madness, it is spiritual design. The body, the heart, the mind must rehearse the new reality before inhabiting it. Those who do not, those who wait to see before believing, will never cross the threshold of the extraordinary. Internal rehearsal, visualization, repetition of the promise in the secret laboratory of the mind are the prelude to the miracle. Allow me to guide you through an exercise. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and name your bridge. What is the void that paralyzes you today? A decision? A life change? A pending forgiveness? A dream that logic does not allow? Now visualize the invisible bridge. See the planks appearing under your feet as you move forward. Feel the firmness that only arises when you walk. Do not rush. Rehearse the step. Repeat it internally, over and over. Now open your eyes and decide on one concrete action, however small, that you can take today as a sign of micro-obedience. Faith is action. Faith is wet feet. It is a body that floats, a soul that crosses. Modern science has begun to sense what ancient wisdom always taught. Reality responds to the observer. Deep thought alters the field of possibility. Sustained conviction is a force that structures matter. The Napoleonic concept expresses it. The mind can conceive, and what it believes it can achieve. This is not cheap psychology, it is spiritual physics in action. The mind, the heart, and action in alignment produce creative synergy. The 3 Hebrew men in the furnace were thrown in bound, sentenced to destruction. Yet when the king looked, he saw them walking free amid the flames. The fire that was meant to consume them burned only the ropes, not their lives. Herein lies the mystery. Crisis, risk, and the abyss are not designed for your destruction, but to break the bonds that prevent you from moving freely. The bridge that appears under your feet, the provision that comes at the last moment, the door that only appears once you let go of the edge, all confirm that faith is the force that makes the invisible visible. Ask yourself today, what personal Jordan are you staring at without daring to wet your feet? In what area do you wait for the bridge to appear before walking? Where in your life do you negotiate guarantees with heaven, postponing the step you already know you must take? Fear always demands more proof. Faith creates proof where there was none. Those who remain in the boat, who do not release the edge, who do not cross the Jordan, only tell other people's stories. Those who get wet write their own testimony. The quantum physics of faith tells us that reality is far more plastic, sensitive, and obedient to sustained thought than you ever imagined. Affirmative prayer, Visualization and decrees are tools of mental and spiritual law. By training your mind to see, feel, and act from conviction, you mobilize invisible forces. Add to this one concrete act, however small, and you enter the pattern of heaven. First obedience, then opening. Never underestimate the micro-act, the smallest step. Each micro-obedience is an invisible brick in the bridge you must cross. The bridge never appears all at once. It emerges plank by plank as you advance. The miracle is not in the distance traveled, but in the courage to take the first step without seeing the ground. This is how the supreme principle is activated. Heaven responds to movement. Remember always, the true miracle is the transformation of the heart that dares to act before seeing. That is biblical faith, operative faith, faith that alters the structure of the material world. When you position yourself on that frequency, matter obeys. Faith is not suggestion nor escape. It is a generative force, a law of the universe. The inner Christ knew this. If you can believe, all things are possible to the one who believes. I close this chapter by inviting you to make internal rehearsal a daily practice, to release guarantees, to move with wet feet and a burning heart. The bridge will appear beneath your feet. The Jordan will open as you walk. The fire will consume only what no longer serves you. Faith, well understood, becomes the quantum physics of the soul, and your life transforms into the stage where the invisible takes form and the impossible becomes fact. Prepare yourself, because in the next chapter you will learn that beyond your actions, the environments in which you move are active forces that shape your destiny. It is not enough to walk. You must choose where and with whom to walk. So it is. Chapter 9. The Invisible Ecology of Destiny. There is a silent law that determines how every living being manifests, thrives, or languishes. The law of the environment. We are not isolated islands, nor independent minds floating in a void. From beginning to end, we are children of an invisible ecology, a network of forces that go beyond what the eyes see, yet precisely shape the quality of our thoughts, the temperature of our emotions, and the real reach of our decisions. Ignore this law, and you will live in fruitless struggle against invisible causes. Understand it, and you will learn to direct your destiny like a gardener who wisely chooses the place to plant their most precious seed. Environment is not just a place. It is active force, atmosphere, collective vibration, a fertile ground for your ideas, projects, and relationships. It is the color and texture of the soil where your roots take hold. Every physical, mental, relational, or spiritual environment has the power to either enhance your growth or quietly limit it. A soul sensitive to this mystery quickly realizes that not all soil celebrates its seed. Some soils merely tolerate it, others suffocate it, and a select few amplify it to full bloom. Consider the parable of the tree. 3 trees of the same type, age, and genetics are planted in 3 different soils. The first, in rocky soil, struggles, grows slowly, and bears sparse fruit. The second, in fertile soil, rises vigorously. Its roots drink deeply, its crown expands, and its fruit is abundant. The third, in toxic soil, shows yellow leaves, brittle branches, stunted growth, and bitter or non-existent fruit. It is not the tree, it is the soil. You are not just your seed, you are the environment that sustains or suffocates you. Scripture says, "The righteous shall be like a tree planted by streams of water. It yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither." Not just any soil, the right soil. Not just any atmosphere, one that nourishes your faith and strengthens your purpose. There are environments where mediocrity is the norm and excellence is suspect. There are spaces where enthusiasm invites ridicule and lofty dreams invite exclusion. Even the best seed will languish there. Examine your environments. With whom do you spend your hours, your conversations, your emotions? The science of the soul is clear. Bad conversations corrupt good habits. Emotional and spiritual contagion is more powerful than any rational argument. Fear spreads faster than faith, complaint faster than gratitude, skepticism faster than hope. You can have a clear purpose and a good seed, but if you surround yourself with criticism, doubt, and rumor, your harvest will be limited. Ask yourself this. After spending time with the 5 people you most frequently interact with, does your faith grow, stay steady, or diminish? Do you feel peace, clarity, inspiration, or do you leave feeling burdened, confused, exhausted? Do not underestimate the power of atmosphere. The soul absorbs without filtering what it breathes. Friendships are not merely companionship, they are soil where your roots feed. The principle of the mastermind, proclaimed by Napoleon Hill and now translated into spiritual faith, states, "No great success is born in isolation. It arises from the intentional alliance of minds in harmony. A single enlightened soul can be a beacon, but a group of aligned minds is a city on a hill, impervious to siege." History shows that great change arises from small groups, alliances, communities, where a shared purpose elevates the collective vibrational tone. Recognizing if an environment limits your growth is simple. Apply the three-question test. After engaging there, do you feel peace? Does your faith emerge strengthened or weakened? Is your direction clear or confused and paralyzed? Where peace fades, where faith diminishes and direction is lost, that environment is toxic, even if decorated with smiles and politeness. This is not about judgment, it is about discernment. Now I invite you to a spiritual audit. Dedicate a few minutes to analyzing your four main environments: spiritual, mental, physical, and relational. The spiritual environment either inspires or imposes fear and condemnation. The mental, what thoughts water your mind? What readings, what discourses? The physical, does your space energize or drain you? The relational, do the people you spend the most time with elevate or hinder your purpose? Diagnose with radical honesty, not to condemn but to choose. Biology teaches that polluted air weakens the immune system, dirty water harms the body, and insufficient light stunts plants. Likewise, spiritual and emotional contamination affects your destiny. Words can poison, looks can wither, silence can suppress hope. Caring for your environment is not selfish, it is soul hygiene. Most people do not choose their environment of origin, but they can always choose where, with whom, and how they move. Just as a tree cannot change its seed but can extend its roots to find water, the soul can seek atmospheres, alliances, and communities where its potential is celebrated and nurtured. It is never too late to transplant your life to better soil. The revealed secret is this: you may have the highest calling, the clearest vision, the most vibrant faith, but in the wrong soil, your harvest will be less than it could be. Environment is not a whim, it is law. Change your environment and you change your life. Choose communities that elevate, friendships that build, spaces that inspire, words that heal. Do so without fear of solitude, because a soul that leaves a toxic atmosphere creates space for new connections, aligned with its true destiny. Remember, every great harvest begins with a courageous act, planting the root. The men and women who transformed their world did so because they dared to leave atmospheres that limited them, even at the cost of comfort, understanding, or social rupture. Like a tree, the soul may feel nostalgia for its old soil, but it only flourishes where there is living water. I close this chapter making this clear. Environments are forces, not decorations. They shape your version of yourself, refine or distort your purpose, elevate or suppress your faith. Let your life be a carefully cultivated garden, where every relationship, every thought, every physical and spiritual space is chosen as one would choose the soil for the tree of the century. Prepare yourself, because to love without imprisonment, you will need mastery over proximity. You will learn to set sacred boundaries, build perimeters of peace, and choose closeness without losing freedom. So it is. Chapter 10, Boundaries as Acts of Mature Love. One of the greatest spiritual misunderstandings is believing that true love means always opening doors, saying yes to everyone, welcoming without measure, staying in places, circles, or dynamics simply because custom or cultural mandate dictates it. But love without boundaries is not love. It is confusion, exhaustion, and dilution of purpose. Today, you must understand that boundaries are not walls of selfishness, but walls that protect the seed of your destiny. Setting limits is, in fact, the purest act of mature love, both for yourself and for others. Scripture makes this clear. A prophet has no honor in his own land, not because he lacks love or truth, but because the atmosphere of familiarity, old expectations, and emotional or relational control often confines and limits even the most legitimate gifts. Even Christ, upon returning to his town, could not perform miracles because the collective atmosphere was incapable of celebrating his seed. The highest purpose can wither under the invisible pressure of those who only accept the version of you that suits them. Do not confuse the commandment to honor with the obligation to remain under expectations that contradict what God has called you to do. To honor is to recognize value, to be grateful for what you have received, to bless the past. To remain where the atmosphere undermines your faith and contradicts your calling is disobedience disguised as virtue. Some circles can only give you what they know of you. They cannot accompany you to the next level. Some affections demand your permanence so they don't feel betrayed. But your supreme loyalty is to the purpose, not to habit. Allow me to illustrate with the parable of the fruit tree. The gardener sees that the tree, though healthy, no longer produces abundant fruit. He knows he must prune it, even cutting green branches, because he understands that the cut is an act of love, not violence. If he did not prune, the tree would become weak, its fruit scarce, its vitality lost. Thus, setting limits, or pruning, is cutting what is necessary so that all vital energy flows where it should, making the fruit more abundant and sweet. The cut is painful, but it preserves life. Jesus, the supreme model, practiced the art of boundaries. He limited his access to crowds when they sought only miracles and not transformation. He withdrew from entire towns when the atmosphere was one of disbelief. Even his earthly family was kept at a distance when the purpose required it. Who is my mother? And who are my brothers? Those who do the will of the Father. It was not contempt. It was discernment. He knew how to choose his inner circle, protect his energy, and pace his presence. Not everyone who asks for access deserves full access. Proximity without boundaries becomes a prison. A relationship, circle, job, or habit where access is total, but the atmosphere is controlling, will erode faith, reduce vision, and stifle creativity. Sometimes the only way to preserve love is to create distance because unrestricted access leads to overload, resentment, and spiritual and emotional exhaustion. Adjusting distance is not breaking affection. It is repositioning access. It is transforming the relationship to survive in a new stage, healthier and more authentic. Now, a radical and liberating practice, the approval fast. For a time, renounce seeking, asking for, or depending on the approval of those who neither understand nor celebrate your purpose. This exercise can reveal hidden emotional dependencies. Do it for 7 days. Each time the need arises to consult, seek permission or validation, remind yourself, the only yes I need is from God and my enlightened conscience. Observe how much energy is freed when the soul stops begging for approval and focuses on purpose. Ask yourself this powerful question. How many people have you given total access to your life who use that access to diminish your faith, extinguish your enthusiasm, sow doubt or discouragement? This is not about judgment or rejection. It is about discernment and adjustment. Repeated negative influence becomes belief. Sustained belief becomes destiny. If someone, by proximity, has more power over your mood than your own inner voice, it is time to readjust access. Now visualize your life as a walled city. There are doors, roads, squares, and gardens, but not all doors are open to everyone all the time. A perimeter of peace protects the vital center. Fortresses without entrances become prisons, but walls with selective doors are systems of defense, not exclusion. You are the architect of your atmosphere. Design your inner city so that peace is law and purpose is honored. Practical exercise. The perimeter of peace. Identify in your schedule and circle which relationships, activities, or habits drain your energy and which enhance it. Set concrete limits, reduce time, establish schedules. Stop responding immediately to every demand. Eliminate conversations that revolve only around drama or criticism. Clarify lovingly and firmly your needs and priorities at this stage. If guilt arises, remind yourself, the cut is love, the boundary is protection. You do not need to justify what your inner peace confirms. 3 questions to discern whether proximity is prison or blessing. Does this relationship bring me closer or farther from my purpose? Do I feel free to express my faith and dreams, or must I diminish myself to avoid conflict? After being together, does my energy increase, remain, or decrease? Be radically honest. It is not about judging people, but about protecting your destiny. Those who love themselves care for the soil where they flourish. Remember the story of Joseph. Distance, imprisonment, and exile did not diminish his love for his family. They prepared him to multiply the bread and serve at the right moment. Sometimes the highest act of love is to step away for a time, allow yourself to flourish, and return with full hands to bless those who, in proximity, could not see your seed. Emotional architecture requires alternating truth and grace, firmness and compassion. Boundaries are not rejection. They are a precondition for love that endures. Where there are no limits, the soul dilutes. Where there are walls without doors, the soul hardens. Wisdom is knowing which doors to open, which to close, and in what seasons. Prepare your heart for active waiting, because what seems like delay is actually divine alignment of multiple variables. Accept that there will be moments of misunderstanding, apparent solitude and resistance. But the pruned tree bears more fruit. The well-walled city withstands storms. The soul that protects its peace is a vessel capable of multiplying blessings. So it is. Chapter 11, The Hidden Wisdom in Waiting. The time of waiting is the most misunderstood period in spiritual life. The human mind, in its haste, measures progress in hours, days, or weeks. The soul, however, moves in cycles, seasons, and in the secret language of process. When heaven seems silent, when the promise appears to recede rather than approach, when every door closes and the clock insists on marking delays, it is easy to be deceived. To believe that waiting is punishment, that delay is forgetfulness, that the dream will always be tomorrow and never today. But the truth is different. Waiting is not condemnation, it is strategic incubation. God's timing is not slowness, it is absolute precision. It is the invisible adjustment of variables your limited vision cannot compute. God does not delay to punish. He pauses to preserve, to mature, to reposition. Like the potter who leaves a vessel in the kiln for the exact time, too soon, and it is fragile, unable to hold water without breaking. Too long, and it hardens to the point of cracking easily. Only the artisan knows the perfect moment, neither sooner nor later. Likewise, the promise that arrives too early becomes a burden. The one delayed beyond its due time withers. But the one delivered at the exact hour becomes a testimony. The difference between delay and perfect timing is perspective. The impatient interprets time as the enemy. The wise understand that each day of waiting is a journey of formation, integration, and refinement. There is no true blessing without inner structure. A promise received without preparation can become a weight. A gift given before readiness can sink instead of uplift. It is the law of gestation. The seed cannot sprout before its season. The embryo cannot be born before it is fully formed. The butterfly cannot leave the cocoon too early without ruining its wings. In the parable of the potter, the kiln is not punishment. It is an indispensable stage. The one who grows impatient and opens the door too soon ruins the vessel. The one who waits sees the clay transform into a strong and beautiful container, capable of holding living water without fear of breaking. So it is with you. The promise you await is precious, but the most important thing is that you can sustain it when it arrives. Do not fear the heat of the kiln. It is where character is forged, where structure strengthens, where purpose matures. A profound secret is revealed in the book of Daniel. When he prayed for a response, Scripture says his petition was heard, and the answer was sent on the first day. But an invisible battle delayed its manifestation for 21 days. Daniel persisted in faith, unaware that heaven had already responded. The delay was not forgetfulness, it was a battle on a hidden plane. So it happens with you. Some answers are already decreed, yet they await the alignment of factors beyond your logic. Do not abandon faith simply because time stretches. Persist. Miracles are traveling toward you along paths your anxiety cannot perceive. Think of Joseph. 13 years separate the well from the palace. Every year, every season of forgetfulness, every injustice, every day of imprisonment, forged the inner muscle necessary to sustain the blessing without losing himself. Gold without purity is worthless. Power without character destroys. Waiting secretly builds what triumph will reveal publicly. Ask yourself honestly, what blessing have you asked for that, had it arrived 2 years ago, would have destroyed you for lack of maturity? What gift did you long to receive when you did not yet have the inner structure to sustain it? Time is not the enemy, it is the ally of growth. Every day of waiting carries the seed of firmer progress, a more lasting victory, a more abundant harvest. Learn to transform impatience into preparation. Change the question from when will it happen to how can I be ready? Stop demanding dates from heaven. Begin asking yourself what structure, character, and habits you need to develop so that the promise becomes a blessing rather than a burden. Active preparation shortens the wait and gives the process meaning. Here is a powerful spiritual exercise, the fast of haste. For 7 days, renounce complaints about time, the clock of anxiety, and the urgency of immediacy. Each time impatience arises, breathe deeply and repeat. God's timing is perfect. Every day of waiting prepares me, strengthens me, aligns me. Dedicate that freed space to a concrete act of preparation. Learn something new. Strengthen your body. Pray, visualize, cleanse your environment. Make waiting an incubator, not a cell. There are 3 subtle signs that indicate the answer is near. Deep peace amid waiting, like the athlete who, even before the race, already knows internally that they are ready. The repetition of discrete signs, words, phrases, confirmations appearing in various contexts that harmonize with what the soul intuits. Detachment, when you no longer cling to the promise with anxiety but release it in trust, knowing it will arrive without your manipulation. Observe these signs and do not be distracted by the appearance of slowness. Remember, persistence is the guardian of faith. Most give up just steps away from gold, right before dawn, precisely when the process was about to complete. Do not let go of the plow. Do not abandon the purpose. Use this time to prepare, to refine your structure, to allow your roots to go deep, to let the butterfly form in the silence of the cocoon. God has not forgotten you. Heaven is never late. The miracle of waiting is discovering that while it seemed nothing was happening outside, everything was happening inside. When the hour comes, the door will open on its own, the opportunity will be evident, provision will flow, the promise will find a prepared space to rest. Until then, live waiting as a sacred rite. Each day, each act of preparation, each prayer, each silence is part of the miracle. I leave you at the threshold of the final key. Discernment as the art of listening to the internal arbiter of peace. Because when everything seems confusing and options multiply, only peace will point to the right step. It will not be haste, nor the voice of another, nor urgency, but the inner attitude that signals the exact moment to cross the threshold. So it is. Chapter 12, The Inner Arbiter of Peace. In the art of living guided by principle, inner peace is the most sophisticated navigation system that exists. No external signal, advice, or logic can replace its precision. It is the silent arbiter that, without shouts or alarms, whispers deeply within the soul when something is not right, and confirms with serene certainty when it is time to move forward. Understanding and obeying this arbiter is the greatest secret of men and women who walk with God, even in the midst of storm, chaos, or confusion. True peace is not anesthesia or indifference. It is not disconnection or escape from challenges. It is the harp that surpasses understanding, a state of stillness and clarity that remains even when the environment shouts otherwise. Just as a ship's captain, having lost his compass in the night, lifts his eyes and navigates by the stars, so the soul that has trained its spiritual sensitivity knows how to navigate by the fixed star of peace. When everything else fails, it discerns between clarity of purpose and emotional noise. Clarity of purpose is the starting point, the inner vision, the invisible north that guides you. Emotional noise is the storm of thoughts, desires, fears, and expectations that, if unrecognized, divert the vessel and leave it adrift. Many confuse emotional impulse with spiritual direction, enthusiasm with certainty, euphoria with confirmation. But peace is the supreme filter. If peace remains after the euphoria fades, it is a sign that the decision aligns with your purpose. If unrest or disquiet arises, discernment is still required. Let me offer 3 questions to ask yourself before any important decision. This honors God and aligns with your highest calling. Does peace remain after the initial emotion has passed? Does this decision honor God and align with my highest purpose? Does the inner confirmation persist without shortcuts, coercion, or compromise of integrity? These questions are the secret script of the mature soul. Those who ignore them navigate blindly. Those who apply them walk confidently even when the map is incomplete. Direction without discipline is fleeting emotion, impulse that evaporates before bearing fruit. Discipline without direction is dead religion, effort without purpose, movement without destination. True spiritual life integrates both. Peace shows direction. Discipline provides the support to remain faithful even when emotions fluctuate. The mature soul learns to remain firm when inner peace indicates, even if the environment demands action, and to move when unrest dissipates and peace confirms the step. The story of Nehemiah is a luminous example. Called to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, he was invited to multiple meetings and seemingly noble opportunities. Discerned clearly, he sensed inwardly that these invitations were traps disguised as help. He used peace as a lie detector, resisting urgency and external pressures. Thus the work prospered, and the purpose was fulfilled. The Holy Spirit first communicates through peace or the absence of it. Only afterward does he use words. This is the first sign, subtle, reliable, and trustworthy. Often the mind seeks external confirmations, but the mature soul learns to trust the serene vibrations settling in the chest when the path is right, and to withhold action when unease, restlessness, or confusion arises, even if the world says otherwise. Recall how many decisions you made in euphoria that later left a persistent emptiness or disquiet. Recall the times when you felt genuine peace, even without explanation, and by obeying that peace, the path opened miraculously. The inner arbiter never errs, but you must train the ear of the heart to distinguish its whisper amid the clamor of the world and the murmurings of fear. Allow me to guide you through a simple yet profound exercise, the altar of 3 lines. When facing a major decision, take paper and write 3 lines. Your highest purpose, what honors God and your calling, the predominant emotion you feel regarding the decision, the sense of peace or unease you perceive after prayer, and mental quiet. Observe whether the 3 lines are in harmony. If they are, move forward. If not, wait, review, and pray again. This ritual of peace as arbiter is practiced for 7 days before any major decision. Dedicate a moment each day to silence, avoid compulsively consulting others, refrain from discussing the decision, and observe the presence or absence of peace after each prayer. If peace grows even amid adverse circumstances, it is the supreme signal. If peace departs, even if logic suggests moving forward, stop. A trained soul never loses its way. Alternate mystical listening with practical emotional management. Make silence your best counselor. Close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, and declare, "The peace of God governs my heart. If there is no peace, I do not move. If peace remains, I advance, even if I do not understand everything." Allow the body, through deep and conscious breathing, to somatize this spiritual truth. Real peace settles not in the mind, but in the plexus, the chest, the breath. The transition ritual is ceremonial, preparing body, mind, and spirit for the new place. 10 movements for preparation, daily silence, writing your purpose and examining emotions, prayer of surrender, visualization of the new path, review of subtle signs, practice of the altar of 3 lines, and declaration of peace over the decision, closure of external conversations, act of faith even if small. Perform these movements as one purifies before entering a temple, with reverence, without haste, allowing every part of you to align with the calling. Here, silence becomes an ally. When the mind urges haste, instruct yourself, stop and listen. Make pause your strength. Where others move by pressure, you move only by peace. Make your life a voyage of celestial navigation, guided not by the world's clamor, but by the fixed star of inner peace. With the arbiter in your heart, your destiny straightens, even if the waters churn. Your purpose is fulfilled even if logic trembles. Your path opens even if the horizon is cloudy. Inner peace is God's voice translated into sensation. It is the silent confirmation that sustains the universe. Thus concludes this journey of revelations. You step forward and the bridge appears. You decide, and the path straightens. You obey, and provision finds its route. This is how heaven works with those who choose to trust. So it is.